This is Reframe, the podcast from the College of Education, Health, and Society on the campus of Miami University. In this episode, we take a look at how the emerging world of fantasy sport is quickly becoming a topic of critical academic inquiry, and how as a new area of study, it's also making important contributions to public scholarship. As a social phenomena and a burgeoning industry, fantasy sport is clearly on the rise. From informal matchups among friends and coworkers, to the more competitive online realm of highly involved professional players, fantasy sport has entered the collective consciousness of a growing mainstream audience. For many players, fantasy sport is simply a way to further indulge a passion for sports, while also providing an entertaining and immersive form of social interaction. For others, it is an emerging industry and a lucrative business, as well as a compelling means to engage fans in ways that are attracting the attention of big-time sports media and communications outlets. But for Brody Ruihley, assistant professor at Miami University's College of Education, Health, and Society, fantasy sport has become the conduit that combines innovative academic work and valuable public scholarship. By studying the significance of a rapidly evolving sports media landscape through the lens of fantasy sport, Ruihley is exploring the impact this new pastime is having on sports, culture, and even society at large. And he is one of the very first academics to do so.
It's a truly neat industry to be looking at, and we see different things of why people compete, self-esteem, competition, socializing, camaraderie. We see those major ones there where they take so much pride in it. You know, we even look at some of the other traditional motivations of like consumption, online consumption, and why we watch media. Some of the knocks fantasy sport gets in some of our research is that it's not real. You know, we argue right away that no, it's very real.
Fantasy sport is now reverberating across all corners of the entire sports stratosphere, encompassing everything from football, baseball, and hockey to golf, rugby, soccer, and even auto racing. But to say that fantasy sport is simply becoming quote-unquote popular would be an understatement. In fact, Ruihley uses the term legitimized, which more accurately reflects the impactful nature of both their social appeal and long-term transformative potential. According to Ruihley, approximately 57.4 million people currently play fantasy sport. That number is large enough to put fantasy sport in the same league with many of the major social media channels. It is also a number that is quickly growing, and it is just as quickly attracting the attention of many sports and media juggernauts interested in expanding this audience. But beyond just sheer numbers, fantasy sport has become the focal point for a complex study of cultural interactions that are redefining how people watch and consume sporting events all over the world. In the book, The Fantasy Sport Industry, which is the first academic text of its kind, Ruihley and his co-author Andrew Billings, a professor at the University of Alabama, describe fantasy sport as nothing less than a total game changer. A few short years ago, fantasy sport was written off as just Dungeons & Dragons for sports-obsessed geeks. But more recently, it's been wholly embraced by ESPN, Fox Sports, Yahoo, and more. SiriusXM now features a dedicated fantasy sports satellite radio station, and FX launched a sitcom called The League, which ran for over 7 seasons. Other professionals, such as ESPN on-air personality Matthew Berry, have even based their entire careers around the activity, as have legions of writers, producers, and statistical analysis. Ruihley's work has been to track and measure the rise of this phenomena throughout various demographic subsets and across numerous areas of cultural impact. He studied the differences between traditional and fantasy sports fans, between men and women, and between numerous categorical segments. He's also explored players' respective motivations for continued engagement, reasons for their initial interest, numerous identity-related concepts, diversity issues, the growing business behind the game, and more. So far, much of the data has shown that typical fantasy sport users consume 2 to 3 times more content from sports media outlets than do traditional sports fans. Furthermore, unlike the typical reasons generally espoused for enjoying more conventional types of media, such as movies for example, escapism is not one of the primary motivators for playing. This means that fantasy sport inherently takes a much more active, integral, and immersive role in the daily lives of its participants.
Fantasy sport users are the real deal, and they are a consumer you want, because they consume at crazy high rates. Mm-hmm. Their eyeballs are always on the screen. They consume 2 to 3 times the media that sport fans do. You've got websites that are dedicated to the term called stickiness, which is you go to the site and you stay there.
Once there, these sites have the potential to engage visitors on many other levels. In addition to fantasy sport info, they want the news there, they want the weather report there, they want the stats and the projections and more. These websites can then take these extra engagement numbers to their advertisers and show them the kind of traction they are able to get. This segment is nothing less than what Ruihley calls amazing sports fans, and his work could have tremendous implications for a sports and media industry that is, like most industries across today's contemporary landscape, struggling to find new and effective ways to connect to an increasingly fractured and diversified audience base. Not only that, but by turning an empirical focus toward the emergence and importance of this increasingly dominant subculture, he's also helping to advance public scholarship in exciting new ways. It's allowing Ruihley to bridge the gap between the often isolated halls of academia and the larger outside world, which is typically more interested in practical application over arcane knowledge building.
It's brilliant. I mean, it's absolutely brilliant for sports media to keep people involved and interested.
There's no denying the cultural ubiquity and importance associated with traditional sports, and their underlying significance has already been well documented. The competition and teamwork involved, as well as the communal camaraderie, social bonding, and entertainment-related aspects of sports all speak to very fundamental aspects of human nature. But now, it appears as if fantasy sport is poised to add another dynamic to this cultural heritage, one that is successfully and rapidly impacting the overarching social framework in which it exists, while simultaneously continuing to build a unique community-minded momentum all of its own.
Studying fantasy sport, being so young, it is innovative. It is something that has created this immense passion and culture around sports. Mm-hmm. And so studying this, advancing it, seeing the importance of it, I believe is innovative in and of itself, tackling a topic area that's not out there.
For Ruihley, fantasy sport is the new Wild West of sports. And as long as there continue to be legions of fans to help trailblaze the way, it's a frontier that he'll continue to explore.